So the next thing I wanted to ask you about was the influence that your dad had on your life and the things that he taught you, like the values that he instilled in you and your relationship with your dad, and how like what kind of role that played on your life and everything.
Yeah, he was great. He would be the definition of supportive. Like whatever that word means, it would have fit him. Anything I wanted to do, he was in, no second asking. And whether it was to pay for it, if it was a membership to go somewhere, for a wrestling club or a baseball, I guess I could tie it to sport, but also a chauffeur. If I had to be there, he worked hard. He was a plumber, but he would come home even if he was dirty. He'd wash his hands. We'd get in the truck, make sure we were always there on time. He would stay at practice till it was done. We would drive home. It was just one of those things. But um, anything. And he was very supportive that, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it to the best of your ability. You're going to work hard. You're going to listen to your coach. You're going to keep your mouth shut and your eyes open when you're at practice. He was very big into that. If I wasn't listening to a coach, he thought that would extend over to school, and that meant I wasn't listening to teachers. It was just real small lessons like this. But he got me in with a man named Roy Pittman, who was very influential. Roy Pittman and Clayton Hires are the most influential men I've ever had. And my dad did believe, and I know this was hard for him. He believed it, so he did it, but it was difficult, which I will do with my son, and I think it will be hard, which is you hand him over. If you are dad, you are not the coach. You're not the coach. Your job is to support and get them there. But my dad was a wrestler, so when I got into wrestling, I think that was difficult. I think when we were home and he knew what he was talking about, but I didn't want to hear it from him. A lot of guys don't want to hear from their dad. I'm getting it now. I'm getting it returned to me by my son. He doesn't want to hear from me, but when I get him with other coaches, he will listen to them. It's just one of those things. I think that was a challenge for my dad, where he's going, "Hey, I actually know this and I can help you," but I don't want to hear it from him, and he understood that. We didn't have to work on it at home or in the living room and things like that. We saved it for practice.
Thing I remember you saying that I really liked was you said that you needed a pat on the back. You were like one of those guys that like appreciated a pat on the back for stuff. Did your dad give you a pat on the back, and did you get that from him, like, "Hey, good job, son"? Like, was
Definitely
that
not
part of
all
it?
the time. Not all the time. If he didn't think it was good, no, there was another side of it too. But yeah, I mean, there's really not any extent of how hard I was willing to work my whole career. I mean, my career I was 42 years old when it got done, but it was all for a pat on the back. I was never in it for the fame or the money that came along with it. It was just always about somebody else telling me, "Good job," or they were proud of me, something along these lines. And I didn't know that about myself, but I worked very hard. And now I have kids that do the same thing. And I don't just mean my kids. I coach the wrestling team, but these kids work very hard, and the things that they're willing to do just to have somebody that they respect tell them, "Good job." It's a big deal. Some coaches forget to do that. Some parents forget to do that, but there's not a whole lot that those young athletes get for being there, for putting the time in, for working that hard. And I think at a minimum, you need to make them feel good. You need to recognize it, see it, say it, and go home.
Yeah, I remember when you said that. I had this coach at the time who was one of those guys that was just like, "You're horrible." What I mean? Like, his way of motivating you was just tell you all your flaws and how horrible you are. And I remember just you saying that, and I was like, man, I need a pat on the back, because it really does something for me. Like, it makes a big difference.
Definitely, definitely. And there's a couple kinds of kids. I don't know. I just know what I was, but I would go into the sensitive category. I knew that look from a coach's eye of disappointment or of happiness. I knew what I was willing to do to get it. And my dad didn't always have that. I think he had to learn that with me, because there was another side. I remember when I was a little younger, but I do remember the other side. And saying to him, one time, not in so many words, but, "Hey, that really hurt my feelings. Why did you treat me like that?" But he thought, because he was the other kind of a kid, he thought when an adult or a parent tells you that you want to do better to achieve. But man, I didn't speak that language. That just ruined my day. If somebody did that to me, man, it really bring me down.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it almost like deflates your spirit, kind of.
Yeah.
And a pat on the back will just give you strength. Like, you're this, all of a sudden, you're like, man, I could do anything.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Clayton Hires. I don't know if you've ever got to meet him, but Clayton Hires is the most masterful coach. And it's not the punches and the kicks and the footwork. It's motivation. It is so hard. And the guys that I know that I really look up to, and let me tell you the story. from this standpoint. Do you know where the black belt or the brown belt, do you know where that came from, Scott?
Did it come from judo? I think.
Okay, so all
I believe. I
belts,
don't.
all belts, and this will make perfect sense to you. You'll love this. All belts were white. They were made out of cotton. They were all white. But over time, whoever worked the hardest and was there the most and sweat on it and whatnot, his belt would get darker. So you could walk into a gym after guys had been there for about 10 years and you kind of look around and whoever had the darker belt was going to be better. Now, he's going to be better because he'd put more time in, he'd got more sweat on it, more dirt, but that's how the darker belt came. So then they actually started calling, okay, well, the darkest belt is black, you're the master, and so on and so forth. But it started to happen very organically. And I thought you'd appreciate that story, but I bring that to you because Clayton was a black belt. He was a master of motivating you. And the guys that I know that were the best, the guys that I looked up to or that got to where I was trying to get, one thing that they did better than anybody else is they just stayed around. They just wouldn't stop. They kept coming back and they kept coming back, and it takes time. It's this really long race. And one of the great ways to get to the top is to just not stop because of so many they drop out. And Clayton was good at making you want to come back tomorrow and making you want to come back tomorrow. He would just motivate. The rest and the training and the skills would take place as a byproduct. He was a master of getting you to want to come back. And that's a very hard sport. You know, when you're talking about MMA, boxing, wrestling, anything like that, that's very hard. If you're tired, if you've had a long day and you know I got to go spend 2 hours getting punched, I mean, it's a really hard thing to get into the car and make that drive and grab your gym bag and make that walk and change your clothes and get onto the mat. You got to be motivated. Clayton was a master.
Did you have seasons in your wrestling and MMA when you wanted to quit and you were like struggling with that and thinking about it?
Yes. Oh, yes. The first time I quit MMA, I was 24 and I was in Japan and I had done a fight in Pancrase. And for whatever reason, but I reached a level of exhaustion about 3 minutes in to a 15-minute fight where I could not protect myself. I could not defend myself. I was no longer responsible. I was that exhausted. And Chris Lieben was cornering me. And I don't know why Chris didn't stop the fight. I did everything to have him throw the towel in so that I didn't have to quit. I gave him the looks. I gave everything to make him feel sorry for me. He wasn't picking up on it. And I just kept going round after round. And it was one of those things where that match ended. I was never disappointed. I don't know that gentleman's name. I don't know what happened. I'd have to go look at my record. I didn't know this. Walked into the hallway. I was perfectly calm. I remember sitting down in the hallway away from everybody else, and I was completely at peace because I knew I was done. I am never going to do this again. And I can't remember what brought me back around. I cannot recall if I just went into practice or what it was. But yes, you know, I've quit those sports many times. I remember doing that in wrestling too. And that was really because it was just a long season. There was a show, tell you one, this is the one I'm most ashamed of. I quit the sport of wrestling. Do you remember a show called Webster? Are you old enough to know Webster?
I don't remember that show.
It was a comedy. It was on Friday nights at 8 p.m. Same time I had to be at practice. I quit wrestling so that I could stay home, so that I could watch Webster. And I remember that was my real reason for quitting. And my dad was all ready to go. And I said, I'm not going. I quit. I'm done. All I needed was a night off. But I didn't know I could say that. All I knew was to say I quit completely. And he said, well, it's okay. You can quit, but you can't quit midweek. Today's Friday. We finished the job. If you don't want to go on Monday, we don't have to go. Well, Webster wasn't on Monday, so I showed back up. I just heard a funny story. It was Phil Davis was telling it. He fought in Bellator a couple weeks ago. And Phil was supposed to quit wrestling. He had spoke to his mom. And she said, okay, you can quit, but I'm not calling the coach. You have to go in and tell I'm okay with it, but your eyeballs, you're going to look him in the eye and you're going to tell him I'm done. And Phil said he forgot that the next day he just forgot. And, 15 years later, he's an NCAA champion, had a Bellator championship match, 10 days ago. He said he quit, but he forgot to quit. And I thought, you know what? People are going to think you're trying to make this story funny, but I get it. I can relate to that, man. I was free and clear, but I forgot on Monday.